So there's been something with Megan's bench setup that has been just kind of escaping us for the longest time. She's been finding it very difficult to anchor her torso into the bench, and this just puts her in a position to where when she's actually benching, her shoulder blades come out of place, and a lot of the bench rolls past her elbows towards her stomach, and she's unable to maintain that upper body posture anchored into the bench. And we just kind of came to something last night. Now, if you look, so like here would be Megan's ideal arch. This is the shape of Megan's ideal arch. This is where she needs to be optimal. So with her height being so short and the fact that she sets her feet first, so she'll set her feet first and then she will make an attempt to arch up and then pin her shoulders down. But the problem is, because she's so short, the angle of her arch, it runs out of room. Like this is all she's got. And then she's trying to pin down her shoulder blades into the bench, and it's just a weird thing where she's almost like hovering. It's like her body is not pliable anymore. Like this is the amount of arch that her body is going to reach. So for her to try and pin her torso down to the bench, it's almost like she's hovering, and like she's not even in contact. There's not pressure going down into the bench. She's just kind of like hovering here. So the compromise for her to get feet first, arched up, the compromise comes from her torso. Like the compromise is right here. So she can no longer, here's her ideal arch shape. She can't pin herself down. So now this has to get loose to be able to make contact with the bench. And this is where all the problems start to happen. So my thoughts were, since we have an ideal arch shape for her bench, and it can't go further than that, instead of trying to find this part right here, how about we elevate the feet so her arch now turns this way. So now we're still utilizing her ideal arch shape. It's just now that we've taken some distance from the floor up, now we're able to slightly rotate. So now, even if she does want to plant her feet first, she still has enough room in her ideal arch to where she can pin that torso down, and she's not just hovering like she was up here. I feel like elevating her feet might be the way to do it. Another option is for her to set her torso first. Her feet up on the bench, use the bar, extend her hips, and then basically arch with her feet on the bench, arch, and then drive those shoulder blades into the bench pad using both her hip extension, driving herself down, and then pushing herself down into the bench, and then setting her feet. The problem here comes now, as with the top problem, her ideal arch shape is this. She's not getting any more shape out of her arch. So for her to stay locked in here, ideally, that means once we get to here, where she'd normally just be hovering off the ground, now some of that tension has to come out of her lower body, and she just kind of has to get loose and then trail off into here. I honestly feel like the feet up option is going to be the most optimal way for her, because it's not changing the shape of her arch. It's not compromising anything. Another thing that helped with her bench setup is, for the longest time, she would have an overhand grip when she would grab onto the bar and pull herself up into her bench arch and her bench setup. And as most of you know, overhand grip is going to access your upper back. And too many of us use our upper traps to squeeze our shoulder blades together, which puts a lot of tension. We're like shrugged up. We're not pulling them shoulder blades together like we're supposed to. We're almost like shrugged up into our neck. So what I had her start doing was, instead of taking overhand grip to grab the bar and put herself in this position, she took a reverse underhand grip, because we all know that if you have a reverse underhand grip, you are naturally going to access the lower lats or the lats more than the upper back. So this kind of two-prong attack here. Try to figure out how we can manipulate her bench setup with the ideal shape of her arch, and then also using a reverse grip to access her lats to get the lats squeezed, and then the upper back will follow to get an ideal bench setup. I hope this has been helpful. If anybody's been struggling, especially maybe shorter lifters who just kind of run out of room when they're on that regular size bench. Short lifters really kind of like just run out of room because they don't have the length physically to get up in a proper setup. So I hope this helps. Let me know what you think.